Chapter 1. I met Jemima Clark on the first day of first grade. I had grabbed my tray of soggy pizza, mixed veggies, and applesauce, and as I was looking for a place to eat, I spotted a table of girls my age. Jemima stood out. Even in first grade, she was beautiful. Bright, sparkling eyes, gorgeous brown hair, perfect smile. When I approached the table, she graced me with that smile. "You're Hope Walker, aren't you?" she asked sweetly. "I am. And do you need a place to sit?" "I do." "Great," she said. Then, while keeping her eyes on me, she announced to the table, "Girls, this is Hope. Mama says that Hope's mom ran off when she was just a baby. Mama also said your mom was a piece of trash." For as long as I live, I will never forget that moment. The heat in my cheeks, my throat tight, like a rag was stuffed inside, the tears escaping my eyes even though I tried desperately to hold it together. But most of all, the way Jemima looked at me, like she enjoyed it. I sat with another girl that day. She had dark hair and chubby cheeks, and her name was Katie. She let me eat in silence, the tears pouring down my face while I stabbed at my pizza and thought about what Jemima had said. After school, I walked straight to the library, the bar my Granny owned and ran with her best friend Bess. When I came through the front door, Granny was wiping down tables. She smiled at me with her wrinkly and weathered face. "How was your first—" she began, but she stopped without finishing. She came over to me, knelt down, and grabbed me by the shoulders. "What happened, Hope?" I didn't like to cry, especially around Granny, the toughest woman God had ever fashioned from clay. But I did cry that day. A lot. I couldn't help it. When I told her what Jemima had said, Granny closed her eyes and shook her head slowly. Then her eyes opened, and she looked away like she always did when she thought of my mom. Her face hardened, and she leaned in and whispered some advice in my ear. When she leaned back, I looked at her in surprise. "Are you sure, Granny?" I asked through the sniffles. "Should I really do that?" She nodded firmly. "Yes, granddaughter, I'm sure." The next day, I didn't even bother picking up my lunch. Instead, I followed Jemima directly to her table. Before she sat down, she turned around. "Can I help you?" she asked. I punched her in the face as hard as I could. From that day forward, Jemima Clark and I were enemies. Insults and pranks, both private and public, were traded between us more times than I could count. And along the way, I did some admittedly awful things to her. But, and this was a critical detail that I never ever forgot, she started it. All of those memories and thoughts were swirling around in my head as I watched my lifelong enemy give a speech in front of the entire town as part of her mayoral inauguration. That's right. To my horror, Jemima Clark was the newest mayor of Hopeless, Idaho. How did something like that occur? I could blame it on Jemima's lips and hips and boobs, and the fact that men are particularly fond of lips and hips and boobs, but that was only 90% of it. The other 10%, the part that put it over the top and the part that really made her dangerous, was this. Jemima Clark was not dumb. Though she might have looked like a bimbo out of central casting for an 80s movie, she was not now and never had been stupid. Jemima was gorgeous, she was ambitious, and she was smart. "Mama, do we really get to throw tomatoes at her when she's done?" asked a restless boy to my right. Mama was the cute brunette next to him, my best friend Katie, with 1-year-old Celia against her hip. And the restless boy was Dominic, Katie's 5-year-old son, whose troublemaking skills were off the charts. He also had a big heart, and truth be told, I loved the little guy, no matter how many times he let the air out of my tires. Katie shot me a somewhat guilty look. "I didn't actually say we could throw tomatoes,"